Julian. Today we're going to talk about sleep. And the first question is, how can I improve my sleep quality?
Sleep quality, first thing, there's some basics of sleep hygiene. Most people already know these, is limiting blue light exposure before bedtime. So, a good time to put your phone away is probably around 8 o'clock. So just setting it on the charger, leaving it. And then limiting some screen exposure, especially blue light exposure. If you have to look at a screen before you go to bed, it's good to use a filter, like some glasses that filter out the blue light. So just non-stimulating activities before bed. Most people already do that these days if they're at all health conscious. Not eating, in kind of the 3-hour window before bed is also good, and limiting how much you drink before bed so you don't wake up to pee in the middle of the night. Those are good. A dark room, earplugs if necessary. So blackout blinds are important to just really keep the light down in the sleep environment, and the temperature of the room is important. There's a whole bunch of factors actually that go into it, but those are the basics. And then also, research has shown that when you sleep together with a partner, so if you're married, that your sleep quality is affected by that. But a good way to mitigate that is to sleep with different covers. So it's called the two-vey solution. One partner has one blanket, one partner has another. That way you're not fighting over the blanket, because that disrupts sleep a lot. And then if you want to go even more extreme, if you have mechanically separated mattresses that are close together but not the same structure, that can further eliminate subtle movements from one partner, can wake up even slightly but unconsciously disrupt the sleep of the other partner. And then even more extreme, but people usually don't want to do this, would be separate rooms, but then they think they're getting a divorce and they don't like that. So those are some basics off the top of my head.
What is the optimal sleep time for adults?
I think this varies pretty heavily between people, but some people have a very strong connection with the circadian rhythm, and sun goes down, they go down. I'm kind of like this. I tend to fall asleep not long after the sun goes down. Medications can affect this as well. So certain medications can, go, and hormone levels have a diurnal rhythm. That is, they rise and fall with the sunlight. So something like thyroid medication, if someone's on thyroid medication, that can sort of set their waking and sleeping times. So I don't know if there's necessarily an optimal going to bed time, but optimal amount of time to be asleep is kind of well established to be between 7 and 8 hours for men and slightly longer for women.
How does poor sleep make chronic pain worse?
Sleep is definitely an absolute necessity for health in general. That is, it's more important than food in a sense, because you will die sooner without sleep than you will without food. You can probably last at least 30 days, sometimes years, depending upon how obese you are, without food, but you won't last that long without sleep. Now, water, obviously you need water before you need sleep. So, in order of bare necessity, water comes first, then technically sleep, and then food. There's a world record, I think, of 7 or 10 days without sleep, where this kid just stayed up doing activities, 12 and a half days. Very bad for you. There were moments when we described it as playing ping pong. He'd hit the ball and he'd fall asleep mid-swing and then wake back up to return. The brain wanted sleep so badly, it was like forcing a mid-swing to go to sleep. Our emotions are directly tied with our experience of pain. Pain is, at its very fundamental biological nature, pain is about threat. It's like, threat this way, go the other way. And so, if the threat is psychological in nature, having more emotional capacity from sleep will reduce your pain levels.
Can improving sleep quality reduce my pain levels?
Yes, just because if you get better sleep, and sometimes it's positional related, which we might get into later, that can reduce your pain levels because you recover better. You recover better from the day-to-day activities, you have less inflammation, and you're better equipped to deal with stress.
What's the connection between sleep positions and pain relief?
So sleep position, it's an interesting one. People can sometimes have very strong sleep preferences to be either on their stomach or on their side or on the back. I think technically the back is probably the best position, but that's not always in the cards for people. There's some tricky things you can do with sleep position where you can really kind of allow your spine the opportunity to decompress while you sleep. There's actually a good book on this. This book, 8 Steps to a Pain-Free Back. It's a great book by Esther Goclay. But she goes through a bunch of anthropological evidence about the position of the spine, and in particular the modern day spine. She shows more primitive peoples with very straight spines, and then what's happened to us over time. But in her book, she has this technique she calls stretch line, where she sets up a certain position of sleep with the pillows and with a way you can lie yourself down on the bed, one vertebrae at a time, and get just the slightest amount of stretch in your spine. And that way you're not compressing your spine and your discs as you're sleeping. So that being said, it will be highly individual. Stretch lying on your back won't be always an option for people, and sometimes I used to give that as an assignment really often to people who had back pain, and it helped them. The issue is they couldn't fall asleep that way, and so what I would tell them is lie on, start your night that way, and then you can adjust 5 or 10 minutes later.
Can better sleep speed up our injury recovery?
Yes. Sleep is when the body heals, so just having better sleep, you can definitely recover from injuries faster. And of course, all the other benefits of good sleep. So that one's a no-brainer.
How does basic sleep hygiene, like a consistent bedtime, help with pain and recovery?
The hygiene part really just helps because it makes your sleep better, and sleeping better will help with everything. There's no floor to lack of sleep making your life worse. And some high-level athletes, the Ethiopian marathon runners who have the world records and whatnot, they go for a morning run, then they sleep, then they do another run, they sleep, and then they do another run, and then they sleep their whole night, and they just sleep and run, sleep and run, sleep and run. Obviously, you can gain a lot of benefit from sleeping and get better endurance, better strength gains, everything like that from sleeping more. But similarly, your lack of sleep accrues over time, and your performance just gets worse and worse over time the more sleep debt you accrue. So if you need 7 and you get 6 consistently for days and days and days and weeks on end, your mental and physical performance is just on a downward trend until you die.
Does moving too much or too little during sleep affect my pain levels?
Yes. So moving too little during sleep is, the ultimate end to moving too little during sleep is death. And the famous example of this is with Superman. The character who played Superman in the movies from the 80s and the 90s, Christopher Reeves, he became a paraplegic from a an equestrian-related accident. And paraplegics need to be moved manually in their sleep, otherwise they can develop bed sores. And since he didn't move enough, part of his skin didn't get enough blood flow, bacterial infection, he got sepsis, and he died. Now, similarly, we have nerves all through our body that require blood flow, and sometimes that blood flow is not happening in certain positions in sleep. So while things like THC and CBD can really help people reduce their sensory input and thus make them fall asleep, it will also reduce their need to move. And if it reduces their need to move enough that they don't move when a nerve needs blood flow, it can exacerbate and give them, a few days of neck pain, for example.
Final question, Julian. What advice do you have to all those people out there that are incurring sleep problems in any area?
Step 1 is fix your sleep hygiene. So the recommendations I made earlier about light, and then develop a routine, just like you would for a toddler. Toddlers need a routine. Okay, we're going to read books now. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to say good night. Humans all humans could use more routine behaviors. Routines really set the structure and are really helpful for mental health. Humans need routines. So setting a routine, sleep hygiene, controlling the environment, get the basics down, and after the basics, if you sleep with a partner, the Tuve and the 2-bed solution. After that, then I would look at supplementation with different, there's all sorts of products that help people sleep. But I think the basics are the key first. Yeah. Obviously caffeine and nicotine stimulant use. You want to make sure that happens earlier in the day. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Julian.
You're welcome.
Another episode of a pain specialist.
Yep.
Answers the internet's most asked questions.
There you go.